Hey all, welcome back to Dev Dive episode 10. I'm your host Nighthawk, and I'm joined as always by Riot Legend Larry, and here again by public request, ESL CJ, lovely guest last week. We had him on again for this week, and joined by the absolutely magnificent, as always, Travystyy. He's our new guest for this week. Travystyy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, apparently I'm absolutely magnificent, which I will gladly take. But yeah, my name's I go by Travystyy. I cast a lot of different amateur leagues. Most known for casting in the Title One Championship Series, and I've also casted a bunch of different events, primarily in the amateur league like Upsurge and whatnot. But I've been around in the scene for a good bit of time, and I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. So
Yeah.
this week, last week we touched on this a little bit. We talked a little bit about casting and amateur tournaments with CJ, but we decided since we're having you on this week, and since you are a caster of many amateur tournaments, we're gonna
Mhm.
dive into this a little bit more than we did last week. So I think the first question we're gonna ask is, how did you get into casting in the first place? Like, did you just say, "Hey, this is fun. I'm gonna look for spots"? How did it go?
So my experience was, hi, this is fun. Also was born out of a love for League of Legends and watching the esports. I actually got my start in League of Legends by going. I used to play competitive Call of Duty, so I used to go to MLG events. And I went to MLG Raleigh. I think this was 2011. It was when the Curse Dignitas fiasco happened. I don't know if you guys remember it, but basically they win trade. They were like, the points didn't matter because they had a point system at that time, and
Oh.
they basically said, all right, we're just going to ARAM. Before ARAM was actually a game mode, they were like, we're just going to ARAM in the middle. And then MLG like
Oh.
fined both Curse and Dignitas
Yeah.
because of that, and it was
Yeah.
just. But I watched that, and as a viewer watching an ARAM, I was like, oh, every League of Legends game is exactly like this. And I believe the casters that I had D-Man over there casting as well, which was absolutely phenomenal. So listening to him got me interested into the game, and then as I played more of the game until I gradually got my way to level 30, I grew an interest in the casting, and then I saw an ad for Compete League. I signed up to join for Compete League, and then that is basically how everything started for me. I signed up there. They had a emergency situation where they didn't have a caster, and then they threw me up with Mad Magical, who is
Ooh.
formerly known as Magical Voice. That was my first casting partner, uh,
Cool.
and yeah, we just went at it.
How did it go? How did that first match go?
I think it went fine. I color cast. So my first season as a in compete league, I actually casted as a color caster, which is weird because I'm a play-by-play caster now. Uh,
Could you
but
explain the difference between those 2? Because, like I said, I have no idea what
yeah,
that is.
uh, color caster basically is more informative. Is really writing up a lot of the narrative. Is what the preconceived thing of everything is. So you're really talking about what champions do. You're breaking down champ select is a huge thing. Actually talking about points of transition. Really learning how to talk about like what does each individual matchup look like? How does this affect?
Okay.
What are win conditions? Well, play by play is predominantly knowing how to first and foremost talk.
Mm.
If you don't know how to talk correctly in a lot of different senses, it's a little bit weird. Also, knowing how to call fights, memorizing ability names, making sure to be somebody that your color caster can bounce off of. You do still need to be knowledgeable of the game
Mhm,
as a
mhm.
play by play because you need to know all the different interactions. That way, you're prepared. So the main difference between the two, it kind of breaks down on that. Color casters are super important in like games that have very low kills
Oh,
because
okay.
there's so much objective play and whatnot. While play by plays and games that have high kills, or even if it's low kills, being able to really make that hype moment, that big turning point, into a memorable moment for the viewer is your big priority.
Okay.
So
Uh,
you said that you're normally a play-by-play caster. CJ, you're normally a color caster, right?
mhm.
Not anymore. I
Not
actually
anymore.
pulled the
Ah.
travesty route, and I started out as a color caster. I started casting at the start of 2019. Um, I also started with Compete League, but that was as a behind the scenes admin. I saw a Reddit post advertising for voluntary organizers, and I just finished uni, or I was in my last year of uni, and I had nothing better to do, so I joined up. And I think at one point at Compete League, I was on an analyst desk for a pre-finals thing, just because they needed somebody. As you know, similar sometimes the person doesn't show up, or you need someone to fill the spot. So I jumped in and really enjoyed it, but I wasn't confident enough by any means to get in front of the camera for a long time until now, when I'd moved down to Leicester for work and I'd already done a great deal of personal developing over those few years and wanted to get started with it. I started with color because I just felt like I had a decent knowledge of the game and I wasn't confident in my speaking. And as Trav says, being able to speak properly and fluently and fluidly as a play-by-play is so important. But as it went on, I felt like when I casted with other people who were way more knowledgeable about the game and strategy and just had a better mind for studying the game, I felt embarrassed about my color casting because I didn't think I knew enough. So I was like, dang it.
No.
I gotta be a play-by-play dude. I gotta dumb this down, okay? So I swapped to play-by-play, and I actually have a lot more fun being a play-by-play. Honestly, I think it is so much fun being a play-by-play. And as Trav says, you still need the knowledge, and you've got to be able to bounce off your color cast and maybe set them up for a point. So yeah,
Would you
That's
say
cool. And
that?
just to
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead,
Ray.
Ben. All right, well, I'll go ahead. So, just to point out, because it's such a topic that we try to hammer home is hearing both your stories. It's so great to hear. It's like I didn't go to school for right. I mean,
yeah,
obviously, it's not really something that's taught right now. But like the backgrounds are not. Oh, I was sports broadcaster. I was this. I was
mm,
that. No, you
Mhm.
had a love of the game. You had a knowledge of it, and you went out and found an opportunity that wasn't paid automatically. I know that's a mindset that I think a lot of people have when they try to get out. It's like, oh, I need to be paid. I need to have professional experience. No, I mean, I wouldn't say that. Like volunteer organizations, any
mm,
experience where you do it and do it with a team and as a group, like that's experience. That's invaluable. So that's awesome to hear that both of you are where you are right now and that you started with, hey, I like this. I'm gonna find some place that's gonna ask me.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually a big misconception. Actually, is like I have to be paid, and it's just like no, you really need to prove yourself if you want to be paid, and the
yeah.
Yeah.
best way to prove
Like that.
yourself is to go for one of these volunteer orgs and focus on working on yourself and finding ways to really make yourself improve. Like CJ talked about him switching from color to play by play. Mine was actually off of my first season casting with Compete League, they actually flew me out to Calgary to
Oh,
cast
cool.
live for an event, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna make you play by play in this," and I was just like, "Oh, okay, I haven't done that." And we did practice rounds. Like we had an Airbnb where we stayed at, and one of the EU guys that worked over there, Counterfeit, is the most memorable that comes to my mind. Where he was just like, "Wait, you got a voice for that?" He's like, "You don't play by play? Are you kidding me?" He's like, "You could actually."
Mm,
He's like, "If you didn't cast, just like go do this. Like you actually could really make play by play your thing." And that's when, after doing that and having a very good reception to the broadcast, and then also working the analyst desk over there, uh, I just fell in love with the fact of everything that went on with it, and I just like I have to keep being a play by play. Play by play is just too much fun, like CJ said.
Would you ever find yourself going back to color, like if you had to, or you're just stuck in play by
If
play?
if I was casting with a particular person, yes, I would color. If I were casting with Mad Magical, I would color with him in a heartbeat because it is actually me and him have like an innate synergy with one another, and we just not only do we have a really good time, but the overall feel of any cast that has both me and him in it tends to be just a really fun cast for the viewers as well. So I just like if I can have that synergy with somebody, like the same synergy I have with Magical, 110%, I will color if that is what the decision has to be. I will absolutely color. There's also been cases where I casted with Rivington. When I casted with Riv, I did color there too. It's like I knew that he's good as a play-by-play, and I can jump in there and I can basically go right back into color because I do have the game knowledge, and I know as a play-by-play, you really have to know what you if you don't know what a good color is and you don't know what like good things to say at certain points are, it's harder to be a play-by-play because you don't know how to flip things and you don't know how to ask the questions that the color wants to answer.
Yeah,
So
I think it's really important what you said, that you have this innate synergy with magical and that you could just jump back into a cast with them in the heartbeat. And it really is true that some people, when you're casting with them, you really just have wildly good chemistry compared to others, and you
mhm.
can just click into a cast with specific people way easier than others. It's so apparent when you're casting. If you're a good caster, you can make it so that the audience can't tell when you maybe have not as good synergy with other people, but it's really apparent when you're in the moment and you're trying to discuss and like follow the narrative of a game if your color caster is in sync with you. It's I was surprised by how much disparity I could feel even at a low experience level between, not like that they're bad or they're good, but just how our personalities and our casting style fit together.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
dancing.
Some
Exactly.
people step on your toes. Some people
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
You
it's just
get into you
magical.
just know, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, they do.
Do you think the auction people who like do the really fast auction calling, do you think they'd be good game casters?
Uh,
I'm gonna answer that right now. No.
They're unintelligible, right? You can't hear a word they're saying. Like you
Yeah.
watch the pointing, but you have no idea what they're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
yeah, like I actually get offended when as a play-by-play caster when somebody says, "Oh man, you should be an auctioneer," and I'm like, "No, stop it! That's an insult. No, they can't understand what I'm saying. Then I don't
Yeah.
like that."
Yeah. And also it's
Yeah.
just because I'm that kind of nerd, I watched a documentary about auctioneers and what they go through.
As
And
you
I'm like,
do.
this like, yeah, I got spare time.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like what you two are describing is like not even in the same ballpark. Yeah, you're talking, but that's about
Mm.
it. Like
Mhm.
that's about the as much overlap as you get between an auctioneer and a caster from what I can.
Yeah.
And I think like reading what's going to happen next in like the moment like is also another big thing. Especially I don't know if CJ feels the same way as a play-by-play, but you know when you see a fight happening, it's like a constant game inside of my head of all right, I'm speaking about everything that's happening right now, but what's happening next? That way I can go ahead prepare the words inside of my head, and that way I can shoot them out when it happens. And that also leads into some fun moments where something unprecedented happens, like a steal happens on an objective as we're going, or something like that. It gives us, as a caster, it gives you that surprise, like, oh my god, this just actually happened moment. It's really a big. That would be the biggest difference there. Is like they're not reading anything. They're just why anybody want two. I got a three over that, and it's like yeah, none of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben, what an insensitive question.
Yeah, it's sensitive to my feelings, Ben.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna say. Yeah, sorry, you threw me for a loop. I was gonna say something about this, and you sort of led into it with a tangent. How important do you think game knowledge is to casting for both colors and play-by-plays? Like, how much do you have to know about League of Legends to be a good caster?
It's essential. If
It's
you're a
essential.
caster for League, essential.
It is so, it will take seconds for your audience to pick up if you don't know what you're talking about, and
Mhm.
they will turn on you, and they will turn on the broadcast, they will turn on the tournament, they will turn on everybody.
Oh,
If
wow.
if you get caught out and you embarrass yourself, you're gonna see it in the Discord chat for weeks and months afterwards. You're gonna get it brought up. Like it's so integral to, at the very least, even if you don't know every skill name or if you don't know what is happening, just don't act like you do, because like they
Mhm.
don't, the audience don't know either, and especially if you're a play-by-play, that's what the color is for. Just just be a dumbass and be like, what are they going to do now? What should they do now? Or like, if you were them, what do they do? It's, as a play-by-play, it's so easy to palm it off, and like, as long as, if you can understand what's going on a general level, you can make it very smooth, and you can, like, you can set them up for their points and you're better at it. But I think that the worst thing you can do is try and assert incorrect statements as fact.
Mhm.
And there's this really specific example that Captain Flowers did this season, I think, or last season, where he was casting like a something, and there was just like a very interesting, unique interaction. And the first thing he said was, "Now, for all you bronze analysts in the chat, this didn't happen. Actually, this happened." And within like a minute on Reddit, there's a post that's a paragraph long. This didn't happen. It's not even close to what happened. Here is the math breakdown of how that didn't happen. And
Mm.
Mhm.
it's, I'd be mortified. I can't
Yeah,
imagine
that's the
like
Oh, no.
scariest
dropping that
thing
shit.
to have happen. We actually had because I cast currently like things that I've been casting. I was casting collegiate League of Legends before, of course, everything that had happened, and they had to put a stop to that for this season. But I casted this weird interaction I've never seen before, where it was the NCSU had a Kled and J4 on their team, and Kled charged. He used his ultimate to run forward, but at the point that he ran to, right as he was about to make it there, the J4 ulted, which created terrain, which then threw off the pathing of the charge, which made him run all the way back to the dragon pit. This was inside of the enemy Nexus, and then run all the way back to go as soon as the wall went down to go go to the same spot that he originally clicked at. And that one point, I didn't know what the hell happened. I just laughed, and I was just like, I don't have a way to explain this, but this happened.
Yeah. And being the mouthpiece for that confusion that the audience is feeling is sometimes just as important as trying to explain it to them. Sometimes it don't make any sense, and that's okay. You just got to run with it.
Sometimes you end a fight with "What the hell just happened," and that's fine.
Yeah. You know, I like one of the most famous calls of all time, the Faker versus Ryu 1v1 ended with "What was that?"
Yep.
Yeah.
No one had seen that level of destructive outplay until that point. You know, sometimes you just gotta acknowledge.
Going off on a slight tangent for that, because this was something I was thinking about the other day. How you guys have all been playing League for a very, very long time, I imagine. How long have you guys been playing League?
Like each of us?
Since season 3 for me. Oh, season 2 technically. Since season 2.
So about 8 years for you.
Yeah. Season 2 for me. So.
About 8
I'm a
years
beta
as well.
baby. Yeah,
Beta.
I started off in beta. I'm not good at it, by the way. I don't want you to think that time means anything.
The only reason I wish I played the game back then is so I could have Black Alistair. That way I could just show that skin off. That's the only reason I wish I played.
There you go.
So bouncing off of that, the relative skill level of quote unquote bad players of League of Legends has increased so dramatically over the past 10 years or so that I've been playing League. It's ridiculous. If you go back and you look at like season 1 LCS or like season 2 LCS and you look at like season 1 plat players, you're like, I could get the challenger easily and I'm gold. Just look at the level of play. And of course it's hard to tell because the map looked like garbage back then. All the champions had like pizza feet. The abilities were just unintelligible, but just the skill level of the game back then was just so low compared to now. And now when you're playing in like bronze, silver, gold, plat, you'll see these players where they're not great players, but they have like such good base level mechanics where they can play their champions great. They just may not have the macro. They may not have the micro on some levels. And if you go back like 5 or 10 years, you'll just see this massive shift. And I encourage any of you to look up like really old League of Legends videos and just see what I'm talking about. You'll see a lot of cool changes to the game.
The Curse game. What was it? Curse versus Complexity Black. Look that game up. You watch that game in its entirety, and that will tell you all you need to know.
You know what I really miss from the old days of League is the wacky comps that would actually somehow work. Like the really far out there stuff. Like Reggie's Karthus, right? Like I'm like, what? I remember the first time I watched it where he's like he just goes ham. I'm going in, and I'm like, what are you doing?
I feel like we've lost a
cheese.
little bit of personality for League of Legends players. Like we have like sort of the stereotypical LCS player where they're like, oh, they're cocky and they're making trash talk and stuff like that, like double lift or whatever, and they'll be like, TSM doesn't stand a chance this year, and they have their arms folded like this across their chest.
Esports media day pose with the arms crossed 45 angle.
I hate that pose, by the way. I cringe every time I see it. I get so excited when I see somebody just do any different pose. Like I don't care what. Just give me a different pose.
I mean, I just feel like the personalities back in the day were so much more uninhibited. Like you had like, oh man. Remember the Odd One?
We had the microwave. We had
man.
Do you remember the Odd One video where Bjergsen just joined TSM and he was just like, if I don't gank his lane, he takes my chickens. And it's just like that is the funniest thing for me as somebody just watching LCS. It's just like everybody else is super happy, and Odd One's just like, if I don't gank their lanes, they take all my camps. And I really, I want, so I gank. I play
Jungle-
Maokai, so I can gank.
Jungle has never changed since then. It's still true.
No.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you said, Ben, how the base level of skill has increased so much, but you can still see these players in Golden Plat that are really practiced mechanically at their champions, but they haven't developed the game sense. And you get these really weird plays that they're making all the time. And it kind of something that a lot of casters have to deal with, especially casters in amateur leagues, is how to cast bad players. How to effectively cast to be blunt, bad players, but like
Yeah,
lower
yeah.
elo players. Because there's a discussion to be had over whether you should always try and oversell what's being done, or if you should try and be brutally honest, or somewhere in the middle, or what the attitude of that specific league is and what the community is like. Because as with the community willing to turn on casters and making mistakes, they won't let players forget ever if they miss the smite, if they malfight ult the wrong way or whatever. That's going to get clipped, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to stay there forever. So it's whether you want to try and always build people up, or you want to try and maybe offer like constructive criticism. If it's like a gold silver league, maybe they're watching the VODs back, and you can actually genuinely help them become a better player by offering stuff like that. So I think it's interesting to see how each caster approaches a questionable play, I guess, when they see it happen.
Yeah. And this is something that I was thinking about earlier this week, watching some of the TCCS games. It's so easy to look really, really good at the game when you're winning. And when you're having a really bad game, it's so easy to look really, really bad, because the way League of Legends works is, even though it's more balanced than it used to be, snowballing is inherently going to make you look way better. So like the player with more items, the player with more gold, the player with more levels is always going to look better than the player who is 3 levels under level. They have 1,000 HP and the Zed just one shots them. And I think that's something that people know, like they know that, but in their head it doesn't really click for them when they're watching these games, and they're like, what the hell is this team doing? They're so terrible, when they're just getting absolutely trounced by something. And you're like, well, yeah, but I mean, it's really easy to play very well when you're ahead by 10,000 gold.
That's a thought. What do you think for the people who want to get into casting? Do you think that an exercise of what should they be doing, or what can they do? Would that be a useful mindset, or I don't know, practice to have? Like if yes, what kind of skills would that build out that would be helpful to them in the future?
I would definitely say yes to that, because of the fact of, if you learn how to build a discussion off of what's happening and try to build an assumption of, okay, let me throw myself in this player's mindset. This is why he ulted this way. This is what he tried to jump onto. This is how he tried to do this. You actually find a better way to explain the game. And CJ was talking about it earlier with the lower elo brackets and whatnot that you do cast. Finding out what's important to the viewer base is actually a very big thing. And a lot of the viewer base that tends to watch these lower elo leagues, they're about the same way. They're in about that same elo bracket. And so finding a way to kind of get into their mindset, find a way of understanding is great. And if you're looking into getting into casting, that's actually probably one of the best things that you can ever do to start off, because that is just building off of what your base should be as a caster, which is the knowledge aspect of it, and how do I call this, and how would I go about this. So yeah, I 100% agree. That's a beautiful thing, a beautiful starting point for anybody who is interested into casting. It's just kind of putting yourself in other players' mindsets, and even if you're casting like a division that's a higher elo than you as a caster, figuring out why do they make the plays they do. Watch streams, watch content. The biggest friend to a League of Legends caster is probably any video game streaming service, because you can go and watch something that's higher elo. You can go watch LCS. You can listen to Casters make the calls. You can watch individual solo perspectives and kind of get an idea of what their comms are like when they're talking. And it does help build a lot.
Yeah. And this is something that we wanted to talk about because I really wanted to tangent off of what you're saying to something else, but I don't want to skip ahead to something that isn't relevant to casting.
Okay.
So we'll just talk about this first, and then we can move on. So this is something that can really be attributed to pretty much any like amateur level hobby that people have. Casting is
Mhm.
obviously what you guys do, but playing League of Legends, making content, anything like this. How do you maintain positivity while striving for your long-term goals? Like, how do you stay sane when you're not at a huge level yet and you're just grinding away and you're working hard? How do you keep that
Mhm.
level of positivity up?
I would probably say just be happy with what you make. I mean,
Mhm.
that it's pretty simple, but if you're happy with what you make, then the chances are you should be content. You should be happy to continue making content. And obviously, I always tell people, if you're making content, if you're creating content, or if you're doing any kind of hobby, the most important thing is how you feel about it. If you don't feel happy with it or not, you're just going to dig yourself a hole. And what allows you at the end of that is probably could be the loss of something that you truly do love, because you went about it maybe the wrong way or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that casting specifically has quite an interesting position there because it is to be a good caster, you got to put in some work, you got to put in some effort, you got to be prepared. A lot of it is very tightly scheduled. You got to be available. It takes like these quite significant time windows that you have to be available for. It's not just like you jump on and play a game and jump off. So it's a little more like work because you are basically doing a voluntary version of the job that is casting that the paid casters get paid to do. So you have to be able to balance that around your life
Mhm.
and your other commitments. For me and for imagine for anybody, here especially and all over the world, is you gotta have a full-time job because casting is not a fruitful career
Mhm.
for many. It's a fruitful career for probably a few hundred people for esports casting, like on Earth. There's really not that many people who can live comfortably off just their casting,
Mhm.
without supplementing it with streaming or a part-time job or a full-time job or any
Yeah.
of that. So you got to be able to make this compartmentalized time to do this, and it can get tricky because the preparation for casting is kind of like work. So you're working your job, and then you got to work for the cast, and then if you have a bad cast, you just feel
Mhm.
like dog afterwards, because it's, as you say, Travis says, you have to be happy in what you do, and sometimes you just have a screamer of a cast. It happens, you woke up on the side of the bed, or you're, I don't know, hungover or whatever. Like you just have a really bad cast, and
Yeah.
it's tough because you got to remain positive and you got to think, I got to improve, I got to do better prep, I got to drink lots of water the night before or whatever. I've got to stay on top of it. And with casting, it's not very rewarding in the immediate material sense. It's very much you have to be happy with it, and you got to be happy with yourself working towards a goal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think you
There's
can
like
really assimilate that to like everything in sort of this sphere of internet content creation that's been sort of coming up these days. Um, exactly what you said. A very, very, very small percentage of people are actually going to be able to make this their job, their full time job. But that doesn't mean you can't have fun with it. You can't have a good time casting just because you might never be the next Riot Freak, or you might never be Rivington. You can still have like a great time with your friends casting
Mm.
games, producing amazing content. And who knows, if you're having a good time, it shows when you're doing your job or your hobby. And people coming in will see that. They'll see that you're having a good time, you're acting very professional, you're doing as good as a job as you can, and they'll be like, hey, maybe I'll take him on for my next, I'm going to be organizing this, maybe I need somebody who can do this. And I think
Mhm.
that can be really done for anything. Casting is the example that you were using, but if you're in production, or you're in um, video creation, or you're in editing, or any sorts of these low level like hobby activities, just do your
Mhm.
best. Try to enjoy it. Don't look at it as like I have to get minimum wage out of this, or I have to get this amount of money out of this, or it's not worth it, because you'll just end up grinding yourself into the ground. You won't have a good time. You'll feel like it's a waste of time, especially if you've been spending a lot of time on it. And it's just not going to be a fun experience at the end of the day. So TLDR, please don't be too hard on yourself. Just try to enjoy your activities. It's a hobby. It's not a job.
Yeah.
And
And
if you want to, like, if you can't take Ben's word for it, that's actually words that have actually came to me when I casted the T1 championship.
Yeah.
When I casted that, they unfortunately the first one had a lot of issues. I don't know if anybody here watched it or whatnot, but it did have a fair share of production issues. There were a couple issues that went on inside of it that I'm not going to go into. Uh, but one of my favorite things, my favorite moment from it was I did get to go out there. I had a actually pretty good reception to myself. But my favorite thing was Captain Flowers actually was jumping into Compete League, who was organizing the event. He was actually jumping in and out of our team speak, and I never got to speak to the guy. I still haven't spoken to the guy to this day. But when I came in and I went into my first broadcast, I was so freaking nervous. This was within my first year of casting, and I'm casting in front of 300,000 people. It's really just a nutty thing to think about. So I was inside of my own head. And of course, I was the last block of casters. So I had the last 4 hours. So I got to see some of my really good friends that I really respect and whatnot got tore apart by Twitch chat. And I was just like, oh, this is going to be terrifying. After finishing game one, and I came back, and the owner of Compete League turned around and said, yo, Captain Flowers came in here and was just like, gave you nothing but compliments, saying like, dude, this guy's here. He's having fun with everything that's going on. This is exactly what needs to happen. Like the fact that Captain Flowers even was in like our team speak trying to help out with everything. And then that was like feedback that I got when I came out of my first cast. It just made me set, and it's been words that I've always gone by. So definitely just put the emphasis on, like, if you don't have fun with it, it's automatically like people will tell that your heart isn't there.
That's to jump off that and to kind of tie into what Ben was saying, it's understanding what you're trying to get out of it. That
Mhm.
that is something that I think is setting your expectation is so important. Something that I've found really useful is called the frustration equation, um, which is like it's your expectation, and you subtract reality, and what you're left over with is your frustration.
Yeah.
So, there's an article on it, you can go look it up, but that has been, like, so helpful to me because if you're going into it going, "I'm going to be the greatest shoutcaster there is. I'm going to do this, and I'm gonna make it a job, and I'm gonna do all that." Okay, that's your expectation. If you go into reality and go, "But I'm just gonna play a game or 2, and I'm not really gonna put a lot of time into it or whatever," and then, like, you take that, you do the equation, you're left over with this frustration, you can take that and go, "Okay, well, I'm not actually putting in the time and effort. I'm not actually going towards this goal, this expectation that I want." However, if you go like, "Look, I just wanna go in, I wanna learn good fundamentals, I wanna, go through and shoutcast, like, 1 or 2 games and really, like, build it from there. I'm doing it to have fun, I'm doing it to learn." You can apply that to your reality as well. It's just understanding what it is that you're trying to achieve and then setting the appropriate expectations, based off that, I think is another big supplemental point I would add to what you have said.
I think I've had very real experiences with that myself. Given that I work in finance, I work in a very stable, essential, well-paid industry in
Mhm.
general. And that's what I went to uni for. I'm studying for my chartered accountancy qualification. Like I've invested time and money and years into this. And when I was at work and I started casting, um, I would take I'd use my overtime hours to leave an hour early from work to make sure I was there in time to set up and do all of that. And at one point in one of my quarterly reviews at work, my line manager mentioned, like, I see you've been doing all of the casting and you're like taking time out to do that. And like, it's not negatively affecting your work or anything, but just wanted to make sure that you're managing your expectations in terms of what casting will do for you when you are currently building what could be a very successful finance career.
Mhm,
And like, not to tell you not to do it or anything, but
mhm,
this is what you're doing right here is way more consistent and probably valuable. I just want to make sure that you're dedicating your time correctly. It was very like dancing
Mhm.
around the issue, I guess,
Mhm.
but I had to kind of realize that very quickly because I really really love casting, and but my current position is very valuable, and I've put time into it, as I said. So my expectations ended up settling at somewhere around, I would like to cast a live event in person, um, and that would probably be currently my outside goal for casting, because I don't want to, as you say, set my expectations all the way to the ceiling while also trying to work for this completely other
Yeah.
career, when so many people go headfirst deep 100% into the casting and they just don't get anywhere, because it happens like with all of careers of this type. So I've had to, in real time, had to deal with that exact, like, manage your expectations. What do you want out of this? Keep it achievable, and then it becomes a lot more pleasant and a lot more uh feels a lot better to work for it, and the goals you achieve are a lot more impressive.
My professor also said, it's like, don't be realistic in your dream. Be realistic in
Mhm.
how you're gonna get there. And I was
Yeah.
like, what does that even mean? And then like 10 years later, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm at Riot and I'm working, and even, I mean, even as
Yeah.
someone who has a game dev career, I'm still trying to figure out how to get to that next level. I'm still identifying those frustration points, and
Mhm.
going like, is this actually what I want to do? So never think that it's like, it's just I've decided and that's what's going to happen, and therefore it will propagate into all time, right? Like it is a constant conversation with yourself, because it may come down to a point where you're like, actually, I value casting more than what I would get
Yeah.
out of this other career, and that's fine, right? Like
Yeah.
that's okay. It's just
Mhm.
make sure you.
Uh-oh.
Well,
Make sure
that was
you
an
leave the call.
awkward place to
Yeah.
cut off there.
Yeah. The
I
piece of
think-
critical advice, the pinnacle of the whole thing, topped off and just cut right there. Disaster.
I think
That was
by
the worst
extension,
case for
That was
it.
Absolute nightmare.
Yep. All right. Well, that
All
was
the
it.
mo-
I
all
I
the
I
momentum
I used
sapped.
it, and then I'm done. Like that's it.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
never know what you said.
It's true.
Or what I said.
and
Sorry.
I
You'll
think
never.
it's better that way.
It
Better is a
leaves us on the
mystery.
edge of our seats here.
You can
It's
fill
quite
in Larry's advice
Yeah.
in your own head.
It's quite
Yep.
spiritual,
Yep.
leaving it as a mystery at the end there, I think.
If you think you know what Larry was going to say, write in to devdive.podcast
Like,
at
comment, and
gmail.com.
subscribe.
That's right.
If you're correct, we'll host you on the next show. By extension of what everyone's been saying, the main issue that a lot of people have with content creation and casting by extension, is that it's not something that you can put in time, money, and effort and immediately see something come out of it. With a career, with a job, you can go in and you can put in time and money and effort. Well, hopefully not money, but time and effort, and get something out of it almost immediately. You'll get money, you'll get a career path, you'll get something like this. And that's something that can be very, very eye-opening and very depressing for content creators, where no matter how much effort and time you put into it, there's no guarantee that you'll have a return, or you'll have the return that you're looking for. And that's why it's so important to look at like Larry said, manage your expectations for what you want to get out of this, and never rely on something like this to be your all in all, because there's no guarantee that you're going to get to whatever level. Even if you took one of the best content creators or one of the best casters in the world and you put them at the base level, there's no guarantee that they'd be able to get to where they are today in this current climate, just based off what they're doing right now, just because of how the economy works and how the environment for this stuff works. It's so hard to be discovered. And it's there's no, like, not to ramble on about this, just because you're producing something very, very, very high quality doesn't immediately mean that you're going to be the next big thing, or you're not going to have 100% success with this. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't put your best into the job, because if you're not putting your best into it, there's no chance. Like, to have any sort of chance, put your best into it.
I actually love that you say that, because I spend like, after every cast, I immediately go back and it's like, all right, how good was that cast? Where are my faults at? Where am I growing at? And like, my end goal, of course, has always been like, I love casting. Like, casting is absolutely a passion, and it's something I want to keep with me for my future. So I'm constantly trying to find big moments. Like yesterday, I got a reminder that it's been 3 years since I flew back home from that Calgary trip where everything really started for me.
Mhm.
And like it's very interesting to always like look back and kind of think of growth because I went from somebody who was kind of grunty with my casting, where I would try to emphasize big moments, like I was a WWE commentator or something like that. Like I would be like, "Oh, he's breaking his legs," like, and then like I went over to like changing up my style, finding what my strengths are. I went to cast the Tyler One Championship, and I found out, oh, me just being comfortable and having fun is the best way for me to cast, and then growing off of that. And then here recently, I've casted collegiate. I've casted. Casted for Team Liquid Academy during this past season. There's been all sorts of things I can look back at and be like, there is a stable chain of growth, and it's something where I'm like, even though it's one of the hardest things to get into, the fact that I can continue to grow at the rate that I am, and the end goal, of course, being of to be professional as a caster and be able to make a living off of it, and to be able to make that be a reality, of course. It also puts into perspective of what you want to do after that. It's like it also does that. Like I love the fact earlier on inside of this we talked about who's going to be the next Riot Freak or who's going to be the next, and it also brings into that perspective of like for me personally, I don't want to be any of those guys because all those guys are freaking awesome. Like every single one of the casters are freaking amazing. Even the ones that don't really cast anymore inside of like the League of Legends realm, I still greatly respect because they did it and they had their own brand that was recognizable and it was them. I want to be the biggest, the greatest Travystyy out there. You know, like that's what I want to be, and it's one of those. It's one of those things I definitely have to carry with myself, and because that's my long term, I always see myself growing to the point where it's like I casted for another organization the other day, and like going back through the Twitch chat because I love reading the Twitch chat whenever I cast. Seeing somebody go back through one of my fights and just so, yo, how many words per minute was that? And I was just like, hey, look, I've gone from auctioneer to rap god. All right, I'm taking it. But it's personal growth being like the medium for me to like continue to grow like that and whatnot. It makes it so much comfortable for me to be like, yeah, of course I'm at a position where I do need to work a full-time job. I need something that pays the bills consistently. I need that consistent footing. But at the same time, if I focus on improving myself and whatnot, if I keep that grind up, if I still have that same passion and love for League of Legends, for casting in general, then and for entertaining people in general, it's a phenomenal thing because it does spur you on forward to constantly grow like that.
Yeah,
And to
I really sorry. Go ahead.
go, no, go ahead.
I really identify with what you said about reading the Twitch chat back after your casts. Literally, when I finish a cast, I go into I come off mic, I go into the staff channel, 5-10 minute debrief, log off. The VOD goes up on the second monitor straight away. Play back from the beginning, not even a hesitation. Like I want to listen to back, and I want to hear what was good and what was bad. And then you see that one person in the Twitch chat. It's like, man, this cast is so good, or that was really hype, and that's just it's so good. It's such a great feeling, and one of the specifically good things about amateur leagues is the players love to be casted because they watch the LCS and the LEC streams. They want to be that. They want their big play to get shoutcasted over, and you can do that for them. And then, you get messages after games from players like, "Oh, I love the cast today. Thanks for the kind words." Or really, this play wasn't all that, or this is what I was thinking. And it's so genuine, I think,
Mhm.
Yeah.
from them, that the enjoyment they get out of it. And besides also enjoying hearing the sound of my own voice at least a little bit on a cast, there's a little bit of that there, I can't deny. But like I like watching myself be professional and good at casting, but also just the players expressing that gratitude for giving them like the praise and the spotlight that they want. And it's really nice, really, yeah, it's like I said, it's really genuine, I think, the enjoyment they get.
I
And
think
that's
that
the leg
highlights a
up.
really good. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
No,
Go ahead,
you
Ben.
already got.
Yeah, I already trampled
You've been
anyway.
cut off
All right.
once, all right, man.
All right. All right. We'll see if Discord kicks me out before I finish what I said. So
Yeah.
I think that really highlights the 2 points, right? Like, CJ, you're talking about this is what I do to get motivated, and that's what I want, right? This is like you have your career, you've accepted. That sounds bad. Like you know what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
you got it on lockdown, and now you're going, okay, this is what I do, and this is how I identify that I've been doing a good job, right? Like
Mhm.
you've set that down. And with Travesty, it's okay, cool. I have my goal, right? I'm doing this now, but I want to get better, and this is how I get better, and this is how I know I'm getting better, right? It really highlights one, a healthy approach, but with two, like in the same realm, but with two very different goals at the end. So that's really cool. It's I
Mm.
just to highlight out. That's really cool to see, and it's really cool to hear from both of you. It's a good example.
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly bounce off of what CJ said about the players generally enjoying being casted because it's always fun. It's a fun environment for everyone to be in this amateur league and have like people casting you like you're playing LCS or playing like a real tournament. Um, that's sort of the leg up that casting does have over other forms of content creation. You'll always have a baseline of people who are interested in what you do because they're physically a part of it. You always have people who are like, "Oh, I'm actually playing in this tournament. I'm going to be interested in watching what's going on." And that's like you have a baseline of people, and for how growing online works, that baseline can help you dramatically reach a higher and higher level because you have people who are like, man, if you're friends with a large online content creator and they'll be like, I'm going to be hosting a esports tournament for some of my fans. Do you know anyone who might be able to host it with me? And because you have those connections with those people, they can say, hey, this guy's actually pretty damn good at what he does. Bring him in. And then all of a sudden you're reaching this whole other group of people
Mhm.
who are completely unrelated to what you've been doing, and it's a web of connections, and you'll have your name out there, which is why I think casting is like such an awesome opportunity for people because you're not starting at the very 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 bottom when you're doing something like this. You have that one small step up above other people, which can be the most important thing when you have literally millions of people on the very 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 bottom trying to get there. Okay, Trav, I think you were going to say something, but if I cut you off, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm enjoying myself here. I'm just having a good time.
Okay. Do we have anything else that we wanted to talk about casting in general, or do we want to move on to tangential game news?
Hit me with the news. Hit me
All
out.
Hit me with
right.
the news. I want the news. Give me the news, man.
So this is something I think we talked about. Was it 2 weeks? It was 2 episodes ago. And I think we have a lot of responsibility for this topic going out there. It's definitely because of what we covered that this is now a big thing in the news, not because of anything else.
Yeah.
Toxicity in League. Oh boy. If you guys, to date this show a little bit, if you guys have been on the internet for the past couple days, you may have seen a 8-minute video by Void Boy titled something like "Toxicity" or "The Problem with Solo Queue" or something like that.
Yeah.
And in that video, he went over his personal experiences with League of Legends currently and the problems he had with the competitive integrity of the game and the inherent toxicity in the sort of field that he's in. And it has sparked a massive online discussion about why League of Legends is so toxic, if it's Riot's fault, if it's the player base's fault, if it's content creators' fault. And it's something that we talked about probably 30 or so minutes on episode 8, but I think we can probably branch off a little bit more because now that we have a little bit more context to talk about. So we'll start with you, Trav. What do you think about toxicity in League? Do you think that there's a source of it, and what do you think the solution for it is?
That's such a loaded thing, though. Like, it's such a loaded
Toxicity, Travis.
question.
Fix
But
the
it's
problem,
like,
Travis. You got 30 seconds.
Yeah, fix it.
Yeah, yeah.
Fix it.
Hot
We
take.
got all of the rioters in the chat right now waiting for you to solve toxicity so
Yeah.
they can implement it in the game.
Yeah. I've got a
It's-
notepad right here.
it's a weird thing to do because there's so many different things that contribute to it. You touched on content creation. There's of course the toxicity that is bred from the clickbait video that every content creator wants, where I went 20-0 on nerfed Kali, please nerf Riot. Like there's always like going to be that type of content that's going to go out there because no matter what, that farms clicks. Even if the content itself isn't the most phenomenal, as long as you're telling the truth about what's in the video, in the thumbnail, and then it's also got that title on there, people are going to click on it no matter what to see exactly what happened. that spurs people to be of a higher elo that get a Smurf account, and then they do proceed to go into either a low elo game, or they invite a bunch of subscribers or something like that into an in-house, and then they play the in-house, and then they're like, oh, check this in-house out. They don't call it the in-house because it's not important for people to click on it, but that becomes a little bit of it because it makes people go into different things with different mindsets where like, oh, this person did it, so obviously I can. He did it in silver, I can do that easily, first time. That leads into a bit of frustration amongst players too, and leads into an interesting scenario, while also toxicity is just something that's always been a topic with League. But I came from playing professional Call of Duty, which is people literally stand up out of their chair, and I'm not going to use the words they use, but they're literally like at live events, just like stand up and be like, "Oh, you suck so bad! Oh, it's terrible!" Like in live events, people are like standing up out of their chairs, literally getting ready to teabag you if you die. Like if you lose that round, you're never going to be able to live it down at that live event. You got to go to your hotel room right after and go cry in the shower after they're done with you. But League of Legends has that stigma, and it's just, I don't know. It's a very weird thing because especially here, I'd say the past 2 seasons, solo queue has felt worse, and it has felt a little misproportioned. It feels like sometimes it becomes a bit weird in terms of like I can be doing fantastic and all this other stuff, and then it's just like I get hit by like a streak of bad. Yesterday, I actually played a game where my jungler invaded level 4 and then immediately ran to mid lane and smited every cannon. Wouldn't let me, and then he fed kills to the Talon that I was beaten. Just in case that Talon's watching, you were losing to me, by the way. You were talking to me, trash to me in all chat. I know you're watching this, but it was one of those things. I couldn't even farm jungle camps. The Graves would be like, all right, he's gone over to jungle camps. Now I'm going to farm the jungle camps he's trying to farm. And I've never actually experienced a consistent level of toxicity like that inside of League until as of recent. And I don't know if it's because of Corona or anything like that, but it's weird. I don't know a way to fix it. Like, oh, I know everybody's answer is bring back the tribunal.
Oh,
well,
God.
I mean, the tribunal went away for a reason. I'm not a game dev. I don't know exactly what would fit it, and neither are the people calling for that. There's obviously a reason why they switched to a different system. There's obviously a reason for different things that have happened. But a lot of people are so quick to point the finger because they're like, that worked 10 years ago. Go back to it. And it's like that probably doesn't work anymore. That the whole point the finger at somebody and say, this person entered me system probably doesn't work as well anymore. And because I just yell at video games all the time, I don't know what the best way to fit toxicity is, because it's just it's
no
a part of the game. Yeah, there's no perfect solution. There's a solution out there. There's plenty of solutions, but none of them are going to ever be perfect, and none of them are going to satisfy everybody.
I want to yell real quickly. I want to yell about the tribunal just for 20 seconds. Because all of you out there,
get your soapbox. Go ahead, get your soapbox out. Yeah, it's all right.
All of you out there who are like, oh my God, why did they bring back the tribunal? It was the best thing ever. So there's so many different problems with the tribunal. First of all, tribunal was shut down in early 2014. That is almost 6-7 years ago now. The player base of League of Legends back then was so much smaller than it is now that it just doesn't work anymore. Back then, they had a 6-month backlog of cases. You would be reviewing games from over 6 months ago on that size player base. Do you know what it would be like today? It'd be years. One day of the tribunal being up, you would have so many games coming into the tribunal that you wouldn't be able to deal with them. And then okay.
Could you imagine that world where you haven't played League in like a year, and then all of a sudden you got a random email? Hey, you've been banned. Like, what? Okay.
Can you not even just that? Can you imagine being the poor soul that's just like, yes, I'm going to I have to look through all of these logs and whatnot. Like, your day-to-day job is to just look at report logs. Like, every single moment of your day is like, I need to check and see what this person said 6 months ago. Is that worth a ban? All right, we're banned. And I'm pretty sure if I was in that position, I would just hit the ban button over and over again.
Exactly. No. This is exactly what happened. They released data when the tribunal was shut down. They released data that overwhelming majority of people weren't reading chat logs. They weren't reading anything. They would go to the tribunal, click punish a bunch of times, and since everyone was doing that, they would be rewarded. So the way the tribunal worked, real quickly, if you haven't been playing League for God knows how long we have, tribunal was a system where players who were reported a certain amount of times, their games would go to a website. And any League player above honor level 2 or whatever it was back in the day could go to this website and read these case reviews. And they could vote to either punish the player or pardon the player or something similar to that. And if you, every case that you got correctly judged, you got like a small amount of IP, which is blue essence from back in the day. So what was happening was people would go into the tribunal and they would just click punish a bunch because everyone who goes into the tribunal is mad. They're just upset that somebody ruined their game. So they just want to get vengeance. Yeah, they want to get vengeance. So they're just banning people over and over again. And since everyone was doing that, they were getting correct responses because they were correctly assessing that the person needed to be banned. So it was a circle where these angry people would go in. They just had a troll in their game. They're upset. They go in, they ban a bunch of people. They get validated that their bans were correct, even if they didn't deserve to be banned in the first place. And it was just a never-ending cycle of awful. This can't work. It doesn't work. Stop trying to bring it back.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my angry tribunal rant.
Think about how toxic the community is and how everybody's complaining about how toxic it is. And imagine the tribunal with what Ben just said. It would be a nightmare.
my thing with toxicity is for me one of the reasons why it's so hard to really find, as Travystyy put, a good solution that doesn't trample on the good stuff that you want, right? In a game, is define it. Define it for me. What is toxicity? What is toxic behavior? And it is you run into this point where it's like it's too specific that like it's not really tenable, like it's not sustainable, and it's too broad that it can be easily abused, right? And that's such a difficult thing to solve for, because you're like, okay, we have to solve for this thing. What is it? Like define it for me.
I don't even think defining it's the problem, because I think you can easily define it. At least I'll take a stab at it. I think toxicity as a definition could be intentionally making the game experience for other players worse. And I think that would be a pretty broad. I mean, it's a broad definition, but I think that's pretty accurate. The problem is locating it correctly, because intentionally making the game experience worse for other players can mean anything. It can mean intentionally feeding. It can mean being a jerk in chat. It can mean going to somebody's lane and smiting their cannon minions away when they're beating a Talon. Just a totally random example that's never actually happened.
Yeah, never been used. I've never heard about it.
Yeah, that's oddly specific.
So correctly finding it at scale. Like, you could probably go into a game and watch a replay and be like, oh yeah, that guy's toxic. But you can't do that for 10 million games a day. Even if you hired 1 billion people, it just doesn't work. So you have to figure out how to identify toxicity with this large remote system effectively. And I'm sure Riot's been struggling with that for a long time. And I think the community gets a little upset because they're like, oh, you can int a game so hard, but if you say a mean thing in chat, you're going to get banned. I'm like, yeah, of course, that's the easiest thing to quantify. A computer can't tell if you're just having a bad game, but they can tell if you say the N-word, or you can tell if they call their enemy. It's stupid.
Bad things. Yeah, and it always feels bad too, because going back to the idea of the tribunal, I think what people want is to feel some sort of agency, right? Like they want to know that what they're doing matters. So if I tell you go report them, but you have no confidence that if you report them, something's going to be done, you don't feel like even if it's just a click of a button, right? Like it's like why even bother, right? And I think that's part of why people call for the tribunals, because they felt like what they were doing mattered. And I think that is an element that is missing. I mean, I've I've reported plenty of people, and I think I've only ever seen once where it's like, congratulations, the person that you reported a
Yeah.
while ago like got banned. Like, keep it up. And I'm like, that was like once in like 3 or 4 years, and my average is horrible then because I really.
I think
So,
that I when I was doing adminning for amateur leagues way back at the beginning for Compete League European, um, that sense of agency was very clear, and it was one of the main problems that the player base in that tournament, specifically just in this little microcosm, had with the management at that point, was that it's a rank restricted league, which is always gonna be peppered with smurfing allegations. Always, you can't avoid it. You just can't avoid
Team
it.
beat me.
Yeah, like you cannot. Nobody is ready for the lengths that players will go to cheat in a no prize pool for fun league. Never underestimate how hard players will try to cheat in leagues like that, is my experience. But the point is that the players wanted to be the ones saying, this guy's a smurf. I look at his op.gg, I've graphed it out. Here's his CS diff, and you see like 6 months ago, his flash was on a different key. And you see in this game, he did this, that, the other. He didn't build the same items he built on the champion last time in this game. He's a smurf. And they wanted to be able to submit like accusations to the staff, and the staff's position was no, we will handle it. We have our own system of finding it. No, we're not going to tell you what it is, because then you'll just find a way around it. You will.
Mhm.
That's going to happen. And this disparity between the management being like, please just let us deal with it. Let us do our job. You're not helping, and you're just inflaming irritation at us. And the players being like, no, you're not doing a good enough job because there was a smurf in this game, and I know it was because I have this, that, and the other. And it definitely does play into it. The agency of being able to say,
Mhm.
I found a smurf, I got him banned, I knew it all along, you know?
I think you hit
it's
the
it the
nail exactly on the head with what you were saying about you can't tell people what you're doing to combat this because then they'll just find a way around
Yeah.
it. That's I
It's
know for a
Mhm.
fact that that's
Yeah.
what Riot's struggling with. They know they have
Yeah.
this system in place for dealing with toxicity, but they
Yep.
cannot release like the exact definitions of toxicity or the exact definitions of that they're using because then people will literally have
People will
quantifiable
skirt by it.
information. Yeah. They'll be
Yeah.
like, I can be toxic in 4 games before I get banned. So I'm just going to be toxic in
Yeah.
3 games and then switch to my 8 alts.
Yeah.
It's just
It actually
Rotate the flame.
it comes into play when you mentioned like about, oh, this person's inting my game. One of the most common things that you'll hear a streamer say, a high elo streamer, is this guy was soft inting my game. He wasn't hard
Mhm.
inting it. That's when he's soft inting my game. Obviously, look at this replay. Look at how he plays this fight badly. He's doing it on purpose. He's soft inting my game, which I have never once seen a clip of a soft inter that is any kind of conclusive or any way different to a player making a bad play, in my experience. And that kind of very fine, blurred line, which streamers who are streaming the game 8-10 hours a day in front of a horde of Twitch chatters, getting this uncomfortable, unpleasant solo queue experience, I think are become very jaded, not misunderstandably at all. Like, they have a good reason to become jaded in this environment, but it becomes very much like, this guy's trying to ruin my game. I know he is. Everybody is. It's just a nightmare. And then, you have the video like Voyboy sent out where just it's full of these people. They're soft inting, they're AFKing, they're griefing on stream. And I think that it's become very hard to tell what's a legitimate accusation and what is just frustration at this point. And I think it's reasonable to say that, and it's reasonable for that to happen. I wouldn't begrudge any of them, as I say, to get a little bit, you know,
Crispy.
bog
Yeah.
to get a bit bogged down trying to tell who is inting and who's not, when it's just a constant stream, in their eyes when they're doing it day in, day out.
I haven't actually watched. I knew that the video came out, but I haven't actually watched the Voyboy
Mhm.
video. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
worth a watch for sure. I
yeah.
mean,
yeah.
it
I
gives
think
some
he's
nice
fairly fair
insightful
about it.
points.
Yeah, I
And
Yeah.
think that the other part that I guess I wanted to touch on for this is the cause, I guess, that most people can't work out the cause of it. And for me, for his scenario, for the high elo scenario, um, I think it is mostly Twitch streamer culture that has
Yeah.
developed this. It's the fact that they're streaming every day, and these people who become hugely famous Twitch streamers, a lot of them, uh, either they used to act like this, see Tyler one, or they saw Tyler One and they wanted to emulate him. They become big streamers, and then the Twitch chat want to emulate them. And I think Tyler One was the explosion of this, like, kind of, oh my god, he can just say that. I can't believe that Tyler One actually has a list of people that he ints on purpose. That's crazy. I could never do that. That is so entertaining that a human being is actually just doing that on stream. Like, that's crazy. And then they laugh at it, and they're farming the lol W's all day, and it kind of normalizes the behavior. And like you say, the streamers kind of branch out, and the attitude that it's hilarious to see people do that because it's so crazy. It's so crazy that anyone would do that. And then they want to do it, and they want to get the reaction. They want to see Voyboy rage on stream when they int his game and then donate like lolXD, get wrecked, get inted, And that's yeah.
I just wanted to also touch on your point too, because you talked about high elo. It also comes back to the point that competitiveness breeds toxicity in its own way. Once you get to a certain skill base, you get to a point where you want to win so bad no matter what that every loss is frustrating. And in a team-based game and whatnot, it's actually very easy for your will to win turn into toxicity. And it's you talked about it in high elo with the streamers. It's the streamer culture mixing together with people that are actually trying to make their nets break or try to find their way to become something. Because what's the number one thing any Twitch streamer will tell you to become big in League of Legends? Oh, get Challenger. Well, you got a bunch of people in Diamond that are playing along with the streamer, and they're like, I want to win so bad, but I can't because of this one guy on the other side of the map. And it's just it breed like competitiveness will always breed toxicity, and that's not just a League of Legends thing. That is every single game that has a competitive scene. If there is competition to be had, there will be some form of toxicity, and League of Legends just so happens to be the biggest game out there, so it has to deal with the toxicity.
I think it's also the level of accessibility that these people have to their audience, because previously the people who were famous are celebrities, and you have a very, very, very low chance of ever meeting a celebrity in real life or interacting with them on any level. But a Twitch streamer, you will interact with them almost daily. Like, they'll read your chats, they'll see you in game, blah 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 blah. If you get into a game with a Twitch streamer and you just play fairly well, amateur well, and you win the game, nothing happens. He's like, oh, that's a good game. I played really well. Move on to the next game. If you get into that game with the Twitch streamer and you just make his experience a living hell, he will not stop talking about it. And you're going to be that center of attention for the Twitch streamer for 10 minutes, for 30 minutes, which if you're a very sad, angry person can feel very good. So it's sort of like this loop, and I've used this word so much, a negative feedback loop of people who are ruining experience for games and the streamers who are focusing on that ruined experience. And they're like, oh my god, this is such a pain in the ass, blah, 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 blah. I can't believe this guy's inting me over and over again. He's still not banned, blah, blah, blah. That guy has no incentive to stop doing this because you are giving him the attention that he wants, that he craves over and over. And everyone else who has problems with that will see that experience and be like, man, Voyboy really hates when people do this. I bet I can make him even angrier. And then go into this, blah, 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 blah. It's so depressing, but I think that's one of the main reasons why it happens so often, where people are targeted, these streamers are targeted. And it's not really the streamer's fault, per se, where they're not doing anything particularly wrong. I mean, there's other ways to look at it, but they could definitely do better in terms of how to prevent it. The other way of looking at it is when streamers do foster this toxic environment, and then they share that toxicity with their viewers, and the viewers want to imitate it. Where somebody will say, "Oh my god, this guy's garbage trash. He doesn't deserve it. He bought a boosted account. He bought his account on eBay. Her boyfriend's boosting him. Blah 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 blah." They'll just yell this random stuff about anyone having a bad game, and anyone who's watching them will be like, "Man, if Tyler One does that, or if I Will Dominate does that, I want to do that too, because I'm 16 years old and I'm very upset, and I'm the best person to ever play League of Legends ever, and everyone else in my game is garbage." And that's the reason why I'm not Challenger. Sorry, that's a bit of a rant.
It's like the dark mirror of the agency argument for people who want to have agency in solving the problem, and some people just want to have agency in anything. They just want to be the person who affects the stream for half an hour. They've watched Voivoy's 10K stream and they're like, I'm affecting that stream. Now I'm doing something. I'm doing something with my day, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not just losing a game of League of Legends. I'm like getting 10,000 people laughing in Twitch chat, you know? I think they just want to feel something, you know?
There's
They want that spotlight.
there's Bo Burnham, Make Happy, the comedian.
It's my favorite
That's
comedian ever.
dude. I loved it because it blew my mind when he talked about social media and like his whole like at the end of his skit kind of coming down to a point, and he said something that's always stuck with me. It's if you can live your life without an audience, you should, right? And that has changed my entire outlook on social media and why I do things. Because, and even like, oddly enough, to go back to what we were talking about with content creators and making your mark and stuff like that, it's if you go out there and you do something just to get someone else's attention, is it worth it? And then what happens if all you put on yourself is I'm only worth as much as the attention that I get?
Hmm.
Like, what kind of effect does that have on you, right? As a person, as an individual, your actions, your outlook. So I honestly believe that there is, a larger cultural issue at play. But
Yeah.
then like if you slowly, like someone said, microcosms, you start like edging them and see how these things line up. Uh, I think that that idea of wanting to be seen and wanting to be heard, is very valid and is very real. It's now just trying to find, in my opinion, it's trying to find a way to promote the positive aspects of that instead of, the dark and easy path
Mm.
of that argument.
Definitely. I don't know. I feel like we could probably talk for 10 years about this subject and never really
I'm pretty
get.
sure we could talk for hours about
Yeah.
toxicity.
Easily. I got plenty of it here. Let me pull up my logs. Hold up.
I actually just did. Oh, just to let you know, like, it wasn't a toxic game, but it. No, I'll say it was toxic. Like, it tilted me off the face of the earth. This one game, and it was so bad too, or it was so sad because they weren't trying to be toxic. But I hate a specific League of Legends character, a League of Legends champion, because of one game that happened 2 years ago. I mean, absolutely. Every time I see them in champ selector, like in the loading screen, I automatically I'm like, fuck this game, right? Like I have such a visceral reaction to it. And unfortunately, again, to that point, that's a mark. You have the person who was on the other end of that impacted my life in a way that will never be forgotten. But
It'll live forever in your memory.
yeah, exactly. In my visceral gut reactions to this champion. So,
I feel like
yes,
I've been
years.
there
We
for
could talk about this for years.
so many different champions on the other side of the thing. Like when I'm playing jungle and I see like a Shaco or an Ivern or something, and I'm like, I know I'm gonna get counter jungled, and I'm gonna get invaded at level 3, and I know my top laner's not gonna come down to help me. I'm just like, oh my god, do I even want to
One of those
play?
games.
And then they get mad at me.
So to one last thing about toxicity, and then we'll move on to something else. I was actually streaming yesterday, and I was playing a game of League of Legends, which was very surprising to me. It was a game where we were losing very hard early, and I was playing jungle, and of course, the rest of the team was, and this is a jungler's perspective, the rest of the team was blaming me. They're like, oh my god, this jungle can't do anything. I was getting invaded, blah, 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 blah. It was a game where I was just not having fun, not having a great time. And I'm just like, this is why toxicity is a thing in League, and I could feel myself like succumbing to it. I had the Urgot coming down to my jungle and like taking my camps, and like just for 10 seconds, I went up to his lane and I took his I took his minions while he was there, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be that person. But just like for 10 seconds, I fell into it.
You almost
And
fell
I'm just
to the
like,
dark side.
yeah, I fell into the dark side, and I'm like, okay. The funny thing about that game was we actually came back and won that game very hard. we had 100% objective control. I stole the Baron with an Olaf axe. It was a good game. And after the game, like, the whole team's like, "Yeah, good job, team." Blah 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 blah. And like, I'm like, "Good job, bot lane. Good job, mid lane." And then top lane's like, "What about me?" I'm like, "Fuck you." I just
Oh no.
I'm like, okay, I could definitely see why some people have this like level of reaction on a daily basis, because that was like after 2 games of League. So if you're playing like 25 games of League a day or something like that, like
Oh,
it was
okay.
an eye-opening
just-
reaction to me.
You just reminded me. Okay, just this is my soapbox. If anyone out there uses this argument as to why they shouldn't have been banned because they're a good player, like, think about this, because I heard this on a video once and it tilted me hearing it. It's like being banned after being a good player for having one bad, like, toxic game. It's like if I had saved 100 people and then one day I just killed one person. And I'm like, think about what you just said.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter how many people you saved. You
Put
could have
the
been
math. Put the math.
ratio, right? And I'm like, it doesn't. That's just
Well,
so anyone who
That's
ever
just an
hears
ethical
this,
question, isn't it? That's like the train. That's like the train thing. If you could pull the lever and kill one person
trolley
or 10
problem.
people,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
one's
right.
better?
It's just. I'm just like, just don't use that argument, just because I can
Yeah.
see it coming too. It's like it's if I had saved 100 people before, and I'm like, don't say it. Don't you fucking say
You
it.
can see his
And he
brain
said it.
like falling
Yeah.
down the well. That is
And
that
I'm
thought
like,
process.
that argument doesn't work. It does not hold water.
No.
Okay, end rant. That's my soapbox.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to say about toxicity before we move on? All right.
Nothing I
Moving
can
on to
say
a
on
much
stream.
much lighter topic that
I don't
won't
have
get me.
to talk to this. I talked
That
about
won't get
my
me riled
Talon
up.
game.
Those of you who've been following Halo coming to PC will be glad to know that Halo 2 Master Chief Collection, aka Halo 2 Remastered, is coming to PC May 12th, so in less than a week. Probably one of the best Halo games of all time. I'm really happy that Microsoft has finally gotten around to porting these games to PC. There was actually a Halo 2 port when it first came out a very, very long time ago, but it wasn't very good and it was kind of buggy.
Flamethrower, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
So we're getting Halo 2 finally. I think Halo 3 is next, and then Halo 3 ODST, and then Halo 4 I don't think is actually coming. I don't know if Halo 4 is coming or not. But good on what's the studio that does the Halo now?
343.
Yeah, 343. Good on 343 for finally getting around to doing this. And
If you buy the
Microsoft
Master Chief, if you buy the Master Chief edition, you get all the other ones, right? Like it's
Yes, you get
like,
all of them as
Yeah.
they're releasing.
okay.
And
Yeah.
so I'm
You can
definitely
buy
jumping
them.
into
You can buy them individually too. Like I think I just bought
Oh,
Reach when it came out.
Oh, okay.
Instead of buying
I
the
think
whole
I should
thing.
buy the Master.
But it's only
Yeah.
like they're only
It's
like $10 a
cheaper to do the
piece.
Master Chief. Yeah, it's
Okay.
cheaper to do the Master Chief collection as a
Okay.
whole. But
Yeah.
it's only like $10 a piece, I think. Yeah.
Not gonna
I
lie, ODST was my favorite.
Is that a
Yeah,
fun-
ODST was
it's a
sick.
fun game.
I love ODST. Anyways,
I'm excited for
Yeah,
ODST.
I had a friend in high school who was the exact same. It was just like the main Halo game that he started on, and he's got the love for it.
yeah.
I played a lot of
was,
Halo 2 co-op with my brothers growing up, so that's going to be fun to go back and
Yeah.
revisit that. Halo ODST
That's
is like
kinda
a
where
great
I'm at.
game, but it doesn't have like the same nostalgia that I had with Halo 1 and 2. Because that was just like the mom went out for whatever, and Dave and my older brother David would come into the room and he'd be like, "Let's play Halo," and I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" Yeah. It was great. It was a good time.
See, yeah, mine was Halo Reach actually, so I was really happy when they put it on PC because I was like, yes,
Yeah.
finally, I get to play
Yeah.
through Reach again. But Halo 2 is really fun for me. I have a soft spot of loving that game because me and my brother we co-op that game so many countless times. It's also one of the most rage-inducing games because playing that game on Legendary is the stupidest experience ever because it's just if you do not play it with a co-op person, you were getting headshotted over and 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 over again
Jackals.
by the same jackal off of checkpoint every single time. You get into the second level and there's this one stupid jackal on the other side of the map. You don't have a sniper, you don't have any long range weapons or anything, and he's just like, I'm gonna make your day miserable, and your checkpoint is right here. It's so infuriating to have to deal with, but I love the game.
It's a good
There you
game.
go.
It's a good game. Just legendary. Get a friend.
Yes, yes.
Wart.
Warp. That's right.
Didn't have much to say about that. I was just happy that Halo 2 is
I don't
coming
know. We're
to
just
PC.
excited. I think the
I'm
group is
just
gonna.
excited.
I think the gaming group, Ben and I game with. I think they're picking it up. I think everyone got really excited when they announced Halo 2. So
Yeah, I think Halo 2 was the first
Look
game
like-
that you can go in and play with friends pretty easily.
I'm gonna ask a quick question to everybody here, real quick. Then, since everybody here has their hands dabbled in some form of content and whatnot, what was the first thing of content for you guys then that kind of got you guys into liking like non-conventional content? Because for me, it was Red versus Blue, and that
Red
was all
versus
birthed
Blue,
with
yeah.
Halo. So that was
Oh.
my original. That was my OG. Like, dude, I love this. This is fantastic, and I just got addicted to it. I yelled out quotes at school, and nobody understood when I said there was a spider. Like, it was absolutely fantastic, and I love Red versus Blue with such a fiery passion. And I just think about it, and it's just like that's what got me into the non-conventional content that we have. That's so much more prevalent these days.
There was a series way back in the day called HMVH, which was Halo Music Video Hell, that my brother and I watched a lot.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's
It was basically just like
Yes.
really short clips of Halo, overlaid on
Set to a
songs.
song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they'd be like acting out the song machinima style. And it wasn't like they weren't great videos, but it was a lot of fun watching them. And when you're a kid, that's like you'll like latch onto that. And me and my brother would like just watch those over and over and over again. And then like Trav said, Red versus Blue was something that everyone in my friend group growing up just loved watching. We'd quote it every single day. We'd play Halo like as the Red versus Blue people, and we'd like act out scenes and stuff. It was just a lot of fun. I don't know. Old content. What can you remember what the first series or like the first videos that you watched a lot of on YouTube were?
Not on YouTube, but like weird, like battlegrounds, like the birth of the meme kind of generation.
Newgrounds.
Yeah. Like Homestar Runner, like that
Oh,
was
yeah,
that
Homestar
was
Runner's
one that I
old
would.
school.
There was an old Star Wars one too that I used to watch. I forget what it was called though, but I think that's the one that got me introduced to non-traditional media and entertainment was the Star Wars one.
I think I know which one is for me. I think for me it was the Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny.
Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
god.
by Neil Cicierega. I think
Yeah.
that's the earliest I can remember as the original
That
YouTube
guy.
video. That was a banger, and he is still
Yeah, it
putting
was.
out little plug amazing music just
Yeah.
No way.
all the time. He's
Oh,
That guy's
wow.
so
releasing full
prevalent.
albums of like mashup stuff. Like some of it is like meme comedy stuff, but some of it is genuinely bangers.
He has an
and, like,
album
a
called
lot of
Mouth
remix-
Sounds or something like mouth
Yeah,
mouth
mouth silence, mouth sounds, and mouth
Yeah.
moods.
mouth moves, yeah. And
the
one of
original-
my friends groups just loves that. They'll play that all the time.
Yeah, it's
I'll have to check
it's
it
so good.
out.
It's actually so good. The guy is a content machine. He's done so many different types of things, but I think that was I never knew like who he was. I just knew the video when I was younger, but I think that's the
Yeah.
the earliest instance I can see of just being like, what is this? What is happening?
It's cool though because you don't have many instances of that where you'll see somebody who's made content 20 years ago now, if not more.
Yeah.
And they're still doing stuff today. Like you have the Rooster Teeth people, they're still making content, although in different forms.
Yeah.
You have people like Noshikara, or however you say his name. But that's like, there's really not a lot of people who are really popular 10, 20 years ago who are still doing stuff today. You have like the really, really long standing YouTubers who are going to be making videos until they die. But that's about it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
Oh. I don't know about old content, but the new content that I've gotten into, I'm one of those millennials that Gen Z like to complain about on TikTok.
No, Lord.
Well, that was a lot of references in one go
I
there.
was saying,
Yeah,
I'm
that was
really,
a lot.
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm on.
Yeah.
I don't make any TikToks, but I watch them. I think they're hilarious.
I feel like the
Yeah.
people who like TikTok, there's like a gap. Okay, so first of all, it's like ages 4 to like 16. That's the first level. They love TikTok. And then it
why
skips from
exactly?
it's like from 16 to like 26, they hate TikTok. And then from 26 to like
Upward,
40,
right?
they
Yeah.
fucking love TikTok.
I think they're hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. For the longest time, I held out too, and I'm like, I know TikTok's the new thing, but whatever. I'll just let it
Yeah.
be. And then
Yeah.
quarantine happened, and then I'm like, I'm bored. I've read all of Twitter, literally all of Twitter. I've hit the
Yeah.
bottom of Reddit. There's on YouTube. It's just whatever's there, and then I was like, fine, I'll look at TikTok, and I got sucked into it.
It's basically new Vine. Like if you liked Vine,
Yeah, I
you'd
mean
like
it
TikTok.
is. Like it
All
is.
of
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
it's fine again.
Yeah.
All right, getting back on track. Star Wars Battlefront. Old games. We love old games here on this show.
Oh yeah, we're privileged here apparently.
Star Wars Battlefront is finally getting Steam multiplayer, which is something that I'm probably actually going to go download because Star Wars Battlefront had one map that I really, really liked, Geonosis. It had the little
Yes.
tiny needle fighters, and I just loved. Me and my brother would play split screen Battlefront growing up, and he wasn't very good. Don't tell him that. Where I would just get into the fighters over and over again, and I'd just suicide bomb him, just run over and over and over again. And he'd get so frustrated that he wouldn't play. He wouldn't play with me anymore.
Remember we were talking about toxicity? Ben?
I started at a very young
Recall.
age.
Playing multiplayer games with your brother is the starting point for all toxicity.
That's true.
I think that it is really, I don't know how difficult it is for games or studios to run like multiplayer for their old games. I think it's such a nice gesture to have, and these people who can come back after 10 years and be like, man, this game was sick, and they can actually just jump on and play it, and they'll put like 20 hours into it over a weekend if they get a really nostalgic game. And I guess I don't know enough to say whether it's how much effort it takes for a studio to just put up an old Battlefront server, like, is that much effort? Does it cost a lot? Or I mean, it just seems like such a nice bit of PR at the very least.
Yeah. So
It really does depend. To jump on the back end of that question, like technology advances. What was compatible 10 years ago might not be compatible anymore. To give you an example, there was the old school Nintendo games and like some of the old school PC games like ran off of the internal CPU like clock.
mhm.
So that clock has progressively gotten faster. So if you try to run these old games, they'd run at like 100 times speed. Like that's why you have to, yeah, it's because it was directly tied to certain aspects of hardware. So like that's why backwards compatibility and then upresing and like updates are hard because
Mm.
you have to go in and the engine might be different, the server might be different, and then even then if you're like, okay, well, I want to take this rig and put it like and update the model, there's a lot that goes into that, even if it's a simple
Mm.
up. So it really does depend at what level you're trying to do that in, and then just figuring it out, like the actual implementation of hosting a server, not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's everything that leads up to that becomes more difficult. But I would say that the return on investment, especially if there's a big player base that's still, one like whenever they shut down the Halo 2 BattleNet, not BattleNet,
Xbox
the
Live.
yeah, like
Yeah.
like there was a server that like went on for like there was a game that went on for years that like
Yeah.
would never let it die, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that them coming back with Halo 2 now, it's going to be a big resurgence. So
Yeah.
it just
Maybe.
depends. Maybe. You never know.
Yeah. So the Battlefield has this. I'll just say this really quickly, and I'll let you talk, CJ. Battlefield has this sort of community that does this, where Battlefield games will live for maybe 10 years, if that, and then EA will shut them down, the servers for them at least. But the community will come back and they'll put up unofficial servers or unofficial versions of these games, and they'll still have players 20 years from now. Like Battlefield 1, Battlefield 2, they have servers. I think there's one called like the Phoenix Network or something like that, where you can go and you can play with other people who are playing this 20-year-old game every single day of their life, or all the time. It's crazy. Like,
Mhm.
and every game has this. Like any popular multiplayer game from 20 years ago that has like a PC port, more than likely there's somebody out there running an unofficial server for it.
I mean, Exhibit A WoW Classic, like the origins
Yeah.
of WoW Classic, and just like there
Yeah,
are
yeah.
people running these servers for so long and wanted to have them officialized for so long, and then eventually it worked out, and then the launch for WoW Classic was just staggeringly huge that it broke it for weeks. Like that's
Yeah.
the kind of how strongly players can hold these games in their hearts over decades.
Yeah, and WoW Classic is the perfect example for people who didn't play WoW. That game just sucks dick. No, I'm joking.
It does.
I
I'm gonna be
tried.
honest. It's not very good.
It's not. It's terrible. I tried to get in. My friends were big WoW heads, like playing WoW since 2004 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They loved it, and they're like, "Well, come play Classic with me, Nighthawk. Come play Classic." I'm like, "Okay." And I spent the first 4 hours of me playing the game as a mage, and my entire enjoyment of the game was just conjuring water over and over again and just giving it to
Yeah.
random people. They're like, "I'm like, here, have some water." And that was the most fun I had in that game. It's just not
The
very fun
opposite of-
coming in.
The opposite of toxic, Ben. That's generous.
Yeah,
Ben.
that's it.
Yeah, giving people water, keeping them hydrated. What a pro.
Yep.
Hydrated for the gamers. We're doing it for
Yep,
the
yep.
gamers. I like it. But also, the other thing I just wanted to jump in there is that's my first bit of actual game dev topic that I've had in 2 episodes now. We actually touched some genuine,
Hey.
some live actual game dev. We got there after 3 hours.
I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, should we rename the show? Because we're like not really talking about game dev a lot. But I'm like, nah, fuck it. We'll stay dev dive.
We looped it
We'll
back
get there.
around. We got in
We'll-
there. Larry
yeah,
got
you'll
some
loop
in. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
get
Don't
there.
worry about it.
We're going to talk about 2 game dev things today because that's how good we are.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
The new Assassin's Creed game, which has officially been announced, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, going to be set in
Mm.
Viking times. Ooh, yay. I read an article that they have 15 different studios working on this game, which is a record even for Ubisoft. I think Odyssey had 7 studios working on it, which Ubisoft, if you don't know, they have studios all around the country, all around the world. There's like Ubisoft Red Storm, Ubisoft Montreal, Ubisoft Texas, blah, 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 blah. And they all do like different little parts of the game and then they patch it together, blah, 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 blah. That's just how their dev cycle works. But they have 15 studios working on this game. That's crazy. The level of coordination that they're going to have
Yeah.
between all these different studios, like I'm sure Larry can chime in on this, like how much of a nightmare this would be for him. But like trying to coordinate 15 private, like individual groups of people to work on one game. Whew. Hope it's gonna be
It
good.
is similar to it. To me, it'd be similar to military, right? Military structure, and I think Ubisoft would be able to make it work because they've been doing it for years. Like you said, they have 3 major studios across the world, and they'll pitch in on different projects and stuff like that. So they have a reputation or a background to do it. Now, doing it with 15, that's impressive. But I would say that if their systems are set up properly, it won't be too different than just 3 because at that point, or 7, right? Because at that point any kind of work that you're doing should in that manner should be scalable. You should be able to add on more people or more inputs because you're already doing that with 7 other studios, you know what I mean? But yes, it is a lot of communication, a lot of coordination, and leadership is going to be so freaking important in that, because if you have 15 studios just kind of doing sort of in the same that gets so messy so quickly the further it goes on. But if you can have like really good leadership and good infrastructure, having those 15 studios pull together, I actually expect Valhalla to be like massive. Like I like the reason you would put 15 studios together is either you want to get it done quicker or it is a huge project.
Yeah.
So
And if you haven't played Odyssey, which is their last Assassin's Creed game, that game was actually really good. I was never really an Assassin's Creed fan, but Odyssey was a lot of fun. It's a huge, like ridiculously large world. It's not as empty as other like super big open world games are. There's a lot of like detail built into it, and it's like a cool it's a cool setup point. It's mythological age like Greece and Rome, where it'll be like Aristotle, not Aristotle, whatever the Rome guy was, who was like philosopher. I don't know ancient
Nailed
Greeks.
it.
You know what I'm saying? Good
No,
history,
I don't.
good
I don't.
good
Like,
stuff.
they had a couple, dude. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Caligula, I don't fucking know.
the famous philosopher.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Good, it's a good game.
We all
but-
know him.
Yeah. That one
Yeah,
guy.
You know,
I only
you know
have
what I'm
one
talking about.
thing to say about Valhalla, okay, and this is my
Mhm.
soapbox moment. Okay,
Okay.
it's set in the UK. I'm from the
Ooh.
UK. Okay, I've done my history lessons at high school.
Wait,
and-
Valhalla's
and
set in the UK,
middle school
not
and primary
not Norway?
No, so the as you can see in the trailer, the setup is the evil English king is
Mhm.
writing dicts about how the Vikings they're tearing the place apart and they're vicious animals, and then it cuts to the Vikings like skipping in the fields, petting dogs, right? And like that's not what happened, okay? I'm not gonna come in here and defend the English monarchies from the medieval ages, not once. But the Vikings were not just chilling; they weren't just vibing in the fields, petting the wildlife. They were wreaking some devastation in Scotland, where I'm from. So, like, it was a little bit like, come on, guys!
There's a little bit of historical revisionism going on in there.
I get you want to have a protagonist, but like, okay.
Yeah.
There's a reason that
That's
when you
was a
think
little bit like,
Vikings,
okay.
like the first thing that comes to mind is rape and pillage.
Yeah, like that's like the tagline of
Yeah.
but that cannot be the Assassin's
A
Creed
Viking
tagline.
recruiter, and
Sadly.
underneath him, he's got on his booth. He's just got the
Yeah.
moto.
Yeah. But the trailer was sick as hell. So I mean, maybe
Yeah.
it's all right.
Well, maybe
Looking forward to it.
maybe there's some storyline in like
Yeah.
where are we the baddies?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in this game because I'm kind of like Ben, where I actually Assassin's Creed has always been like the most overrated series for me personally. I get really freaking
Yeah.
bored. I tried playing Assassin's Creed 1 and I was like, what's so enjoyable about jumping off this building and staying in a group of priests while they walk around? The combat's bad. I don't like any of this. Like nothing is the story is mediocre at best. Assassin's Creed 2 comes around, everybody's like, it's the net's coming. I'm like, it's the same gameplay. I don't want this. It was just like Black Flag. I gave Black Flag a try and I was like, all right, you know what? This game's actually kind of fun. I actually don't mind this. The setting's cool, all this other stuff. I was like, okay, they made an okay game. And then like they had a bunch of glitchy performances and stuff like that. And I've just been like, I'm not an Assassin's Creed fan. I'm the worst person against them. I gotta say the trailer looks pretty sick, and I like the setting. I'm gonna have to still see more before I dive into it and be like, this is gonna be the game that converts me from everything. But I have been interested because they have gone into more RPG elements, and I love a good RPG.
Oh shit! I forgot they made a movie.
Yep,
Yeah.
they made the movie. Yep,
I never
Oh
watched
shit!
it.
I
Right
forgot about that. Oh, I might have to
Yeah.
go check that out.
Yeah.
I don't
But
think
yeah,
it's very
GDQ
good.
like their games.
Oh no. Oh dear me. But where is the lie? Let's see it.
Not here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for it. I like Trav said, not a huge Assassin's Creed fan, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll like the setting as much. I really like the Odyssey because it was like everything was like cool, tropical ocean. It's like really nice, sunny and everything. And I mean, England, for all its
You-
wonderful people
say
that are
you
from, it's not exactly.
describe the exact opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Scotland good. England
Yeah.
bad. That's basically
I think we
the
could
UK.
all agree on that.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, I have no
Yeah.
reason to distrust you. I've never been to either. So.
I think the one through line that every person who's experienced Assassin's Creed will always be consistent on, if they hate the series, they love it, they will at least say Black Flag, kind of fun. That's the one sentiment that every Assassin's Creed player or adjacent person has always held. Is Black Flag good game? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So-
And you can tell that the developers really like saw that reaction
Yeah.
because there has been a little bit of Black Flag in every single Assassin's Creed game since then.
Yeah.
Like it'd be like
Trickling
ship
down.
combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say the best thing that Assassin's Creed they've done for that series, though, in my opinion, as somebody who is a hater, is making it to where the games don't come out on a yearly basis, because I do think that they've added more polish and you don't have the nightmares like Unity. I think Unity was a absolute nightmare to look at. And at that time, I was working as a GameStop manager, and I was having to try and sell this game. And I was like, I don't want to sell this to you, but yeah, if you want to buy it.
Everyone has seen the syndicate screenshots by that point, and they're like,
Yeah,
no, I swear
like the eyeballs popping out of the
Eyeballs
the teeth.
hanging.
Yeah.
Jeez.
All right. Second to last topic, and then we're gonna wrap up because we're actually going pretty long. So we talked about game leaks a little bit last week on the show, but actually this is a different type of game leak. The old Nintendo source code for a bunch of their old games was released online this week or last week, leading to a bunch of their old games getting PC ports of all things. So like Super Mario 64 and like games like that now have like working PC ports that aren't just like emulations, which is really, really interesting. And I'm sure Nintendo's like freaking out about that because Nintendo, unlike some other studios, is one of the only studios that is still releasing Super Mario 64 on a regular basis on their next newest console. Yeah. So I'm sure they're upset about that.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, it's a crime, right? Like that. I mean, yes, it's like it just. I mean, it's a crime.
Sure.
Like we'll just state that right now. It is illegal.
That long pause.
However, silver lining, I'm hoping that Nintendo will go, yeah, this is pretty fucked, but look at all the people who want to buy this game on PC and the longevity that's going to have on PC.
Never going to happen.
What if we just sold it on PC?
Never going to happen. Never.
Make the money.
Never
because
gonna
it's
happen.
official, right? Like
they could literally do a Nintendo 64 pack and like legitimately be like, hey, dude, here's a couple of games in Nintendo 64. But you give us $100.
Yeah.
And you can have Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah.
You can have Super Mario 64. You can have Star Fox 64.
Dude, go
you
all the way back to like
you can have Mortal Kombat.
You want original Zelda? Go ahead. Bam, here you go. Dude, I honestly
Mask?
Yeah, right? I honestly think that if they just set up a GameFly or like PS4 Pro kind of system where it's like, look, you subscribe to us and you have our full catalog of games.
Yeah.
$50, right? A month. I'm like, yeah, okay, $50 a month for all of the Nintendo games in my childhood. $50 might be a bit much. It's hyperbole at that point, but yeah, I'm like, yes, I would totally subscribe to a Nintendo like game shop that I could play on my PC. Yes, hands down. There's so many games that I would do that. I bought a fucking mini, like the NES Mini, because I liked 3 games on it, and it has like 50 of them on there.
I'm convinced that somebody like the head person at Nintendo, whoever they are, was bullied by a PC gamer as a child. And they have just harbored this grudge against PC gamers ever since then. They hate PC. They won't do anything with it. Every single Nintendo game to ever come out would run so much better on PC, and they just don't want to do it. They want to sell their little Nintendo Switches and stuff like that.
I mean, it's focusing on their market, right? I get it. Business, business-wise, like I understand it. The whole market, their brand, like I understand all of it, but at the same time, I'm like, it's so easy just to make a PC port. Like, and to our conversation before, right? Porting something over depending on what it is, can be very difficult. It can be very difficult and time consuming. I think in this case, it's worth it. I think in this case, it would definitely be worth it for them to take their catalog and make it available on a platform as expansive as PC.
There's a Wii U emulator called Cemu that has a version of Breath of the Wild that you can play on PC that is gorgeous. It runs flawlessly. It looks ridiculously amazing. It is just one of the best looking games that you can play on PC. And it's a Switch game. It's a Nintendo game that got emulated on PC. And you can just see the potential that these games have. If you play Breath of the Wild on Switch, it's still a good experience, but you're going to have frame rate issues. You're going to have downscaling. The resolution's not going to look great. There's pop-in, all sorts of problems, all technical problems that aren't with the game itself. It's just with the hardware. And you're just looking at, you're like, this could have been such a better experience for everyone if you just allowed them to do something on PC with this, or a more powerful console. And like playing Breath of the Wild on PC, which I spent a lot of time doing, and I have Breath of the Wild on Switch too. I bought that a long time ago, but it's the level of difference between the two experiences is ridiculous. It's such a gorgeous game. The modders have done a tremendous job of like retouching it for PC experience. It's just amazing. And it's just really depressing to know that Nintendo will probably never do anything like that, because they could probably do an even better job.
Yep.
Okay, last topic, and we're gonna wrap up. We've already been going for
Okay.
over an hour and a half, which is longer than I said. I promised Larry. Larry's probably gritting his teeth and being angry at me. I promised him it'd be not as long this week, but
That's all right. I
whenever
can
I
always
show
just
up,
close
Didn't
Discord.
he
and play
realize he
on
brought me
computer.
on?
yeah, you brought me back as well. I already
right.
dragged
Yeah,
last
exactly.
episode on. Now it's got 2.
Yeah, exactly.
last topic. Half-Life Alyx apparently added over nearly 1 million new VR users to Steam, which means that over 1 million people, or nearly 1 million people, went out and bought some form of VR to play Half-Life Alyx, which is ridiculous. That's amazing for VR, because VR has always been sort of this like above enthusiast level of platform that people are just like, it's hard to get into, because you have to already be an enthusiast to have like the hardware to run this. You need a decent computer to run this. And B, if you want to have like a really good experience, you're gonna have to spend like another $800 on top of that to get all the stupid stuff like the poles and the headset. And then C, it's like still kind of glitchy to begin with. So just the fact that Valve can release this game and reach this large of an audience is like really encouraging for the VR space, because it could be easy to see that VR could just be like that blip that's like, oh man, that was kind of cool, but it never really takes off. But for a game like Alex to have this sort of impact, that bodes well. I think that we might see a lot more VR coming in the future because of this.
I think VR has slowly been, because VR is not a new thing, right?
No,
Like
not at all.
it's had a resurgence recently, but I think that's because technology has finally caught up to the idea. I think the next thing, we're going to see a major surge when they are able to have a self-enclosed VR headset. So audio,
They
like,
they they do.
right? Yeah,
They
yeah.
have it.
Sorry.
It's not great, but they have it.
Yeah,
No,
it's
but it
the
functions. Yeah.
and then also the cost that's
Yeah.
associated
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
right? As soon as that comes down, I think you're gonna see it, because it's chicken and the egg, right? People have the hardware, but there's nothing to play, and no one buys the hardware because there's nothing to play, right? No one delivers
Mhm.
because there's like it's this whole back and forth. So
Yeah.
as soon as it starts to come up, and as soon as you get some of these really big names like the Half-Life, and then also Immortal Vader is like,
Mhm.
that's an experience coming out. Like you get some of these big names to invest, and the people are going to come because the experience is really just fucking cool. It's the next
It's
level.
it's so it's radical, dude. Honestly, is the
Yeah.
phrase I would use. Like I will stand VR until the end of days. Honestly, I think that Alex was such a smart move to use VR and to have this, obviously, like the next Half-Life game, massive boost on it. But then the way they chose to do it was so good, as far as I've heard. It was executed really surprisingly well. And the fact that VR, now that the Oculus Quest is a thing, was the biggest thing for me for that medium of the whole cycle. Was like the fact that it went wireless and functioned
Hmm.
effectively enough. I imagine it probably doesn't run Alex too well, because Alex is such a complex experience, but like, you can get a Quest and you can play Beat Saber, you can play VR chat, and you can play all of the equivalents of those, and that's such great value for something like that, which is now convenient to use. And I the other part of VR that I really want to shout out is VR Esports is actually sick.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It is so cool. I have been lucky enough to do league operations for 3 of ESL's VR leagues in 2018, and the games they were playing, one of them was called Onward, which is an FPS, a team FPS, which is really jank, but so cool, and it's so fun to play, and it
Interesting.
really does get you into that kind of mindset. And then the other was, I don't know if anyone here has seen Ender's Game, the film,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
read the
yeah, yeah.
book, but the training exercise they play in zero gravity, floating around this kind of ovular space, trying to get the ball
Yeah.
into the hole, they basically just
Yeah.
made that, but in VR, and it works
That's cool.
beautifully. It's so disorienting because you put the headset on and it puts you in zero
Yeah,
G,
like, yeah,
and you'll stumble and feel uncomfortable for a bit, but it's so visceral. It's so fun once you get into it, and you can watch the players on the stage with the setup, like ducking and diving, and when they're playing onward,
yeah,
like they've got the they're called pro sticks, which have like the handsets set into them, and they're
Mhm.
like doing it, and they're crouching, and they're lying on their stomach, and they're rolling onto their back, like in this zone, and they have to reach up here to talk into their mics and stuff. Like it's so fun to watch, and the games are so cool, even with the flaws. Like I really want to keep in touch with VR esports just to see how it develops,
yeah.
because it looks so exciting.
To touch into that, could you imagine being able to watch it in VR?
Mhm.
So, like,
Uh,
I'm thinking, like, in like, think Rocket League. Like, if I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, I wanna watch Rocket League, I don't wanna play," put on the headset, and here I am, front row, looking at these life-size cars just fucking and having that experience, and then having that with
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
game that you can imagine.
Yeah, there's a project that ESL UK has been heading up. It's a government research project called Weaver, which is sponsored by Innovate UK, and it's leading a consortium of companies. I can't speak in too much detail about it because it's still in development, but this has been demonstrated at ESL One Birmingham last year, which is working on this kind of full. The program is called, and the process is called Audience of the Future, and it's about delivering this, you know, put on a headset and you're in the stands of these virtual stands in the arena, and you can go into
Yeah.
like a war room, like VR style, that has like the map in front of you can look on. It's got stats up here, and it's got like the 3D holographic map with the stuff moving on it, and like it's happening. It's being developed
Yeah.
right now, and it's gonna be here. And I think that is just insane,
Yeah.
how actually close that kind of stuff is.
The
Just goes
scariest
the VR,
thing,
like I said.
the scariest thing that I think that VR or faces is that it might have come back too early. We might not be quite there technologically to make VR like the next experience. And I don't know if that's going to be the case, because like previously when VR was around, it was like 20 years ago or so, and it was garbage. It was just a piece of trash. But it was still kind of cool. People still liked it. And I'm afraid that
It
like
was
20 years
novel.
from
Yeah.
I'm afraid like 20 years from now, people are going to look back and be like, "Man, if only this came 5 years later or something, and when we had quantum computer phones instead of those garbage silicon pieces of crap."
Man.
Um,
I think
Yeah.
that's true for almost any. Like, if you do
Yeah.
hindsight 2020, like, man, this
Mhm.
would have been so much better if we just waited. I think that there are stepping stones, though. I think AR is going to be incredibly important.
Yeah.
Like the Descent, I think is it's these VR theme parks
Mhm.
that
Oh yeah,
actually,
yeah.
you know, like they really sell the experience, but it is AR meets VR.
That's
And
what
then
the
yeah,
Disneyland thing, the
yep, the Stormtrooper.
Rebel's End or something, or whatever was it
Uh-huh.
called?
Mhm.
It's basically a
Yeah.
VR thing,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
Yeah.
AR VR sort of
Yeah.
experience.
So I honestly believe there are going to be steps, because one of the major things with VR, one, it's the cost, but two, the space, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
major factor. So how do you design around that? How do you get, an Omnitread is cool, but not everyone's going to be able to have an Omnitread.
I think
You
people are
know?
going to realize
So,
that you don't really have to have the walking around experience for VR all the time, at
Mhm.
least for some games.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully they'll embrace that, because there's a lot of games that you can play in VR where you're just like sitting on a chair or something. You don't have to be like
Yeah.
running
Like
around in
like
your
Beat
room.
Saber.
Yeah.
You're standing in
Yeah.
Yeah,
place,
Beat
but you're
Saber, yeah.
still doing
Yeah.
the
Oh, go ahead.
but specifically about Half-Life Alyx, the insight that I have is for their movement system, which is a smooth fluid movement system, as far as I can tell, using an analog stick. Originally, the game was going to be a point and click and move to that spot system.
I think
Ah,
they have both. I think you could choose what you want to do.
uh-oh.
Oh, did we lose
CJ,
CJ?
come back. CJ, come back.
It's on.
No.
The-
Okay, quick. Talk shit about CJ.
The internet, the English internet went out.
Oh no.
Well, I think what he was gonna say is something about how like they have this. Either you move your analog, you don't actually have to physically run around. You can just move your analog stick. But you also have like the system where you can just point your controller and teleport to a place too. Because I've seen that happen. Anyway,
I really like
if
the
you,
idea of being able to move around analog stick. That just for in my mind, but I know you get into things like motion sickness, stuff like
yeah,
that.
you can
It's a
figure it out.
huge space. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if we're gonna get CJ back, but I wanted to thank
Yeah.
him. Oh, he's here.
Oh. He's back.
Did you want to finish your thoughts, CJ?
Oh, I thought he was back.
I'm CJ.
He lied
I'm
to me.
British.
He's still gone.
Wow.
All
That's
right.
not even close.
I'm sorry, CJ. Okay, we're gonna wrap up here. We've been going for almost 2 hours now. Great show, everyone. I wanted to thank Travystyy for coming on so much. Thank you so much, Trav. You've been a fantastic guest. If you want to catch anything that Trav does, follow him on Twitter at Travystyy. It's on the screen right now. It's just Travy STYY. I'll put it down in the description for all the stuff if you don't want to spell it out. Great guy. He casts a lot of stuff. Do you want to plug any casting that you're going to be doing in the next few weeks?
So I'll be doing the DCCS this weekend. That starts at 4 p.m. EST. That's going to be a best of 3. I'll be doing that Saturday, Sunday, and then I will be doing some upsurge stuff. They've got the FACEIT scouting grounds and stuff like that that's going on. So I'll be doing a lot of that throughout the week. So just stay tuned, and you'll be able to catch all of that action.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Trav. You've been a fantastic guest. Appreciate it for coming on, and hopefully we didn't take too much of your time. It's always a struggle with this podcast where it's like, hey, we're gonna talk about this, and tangents. So
Yes, but
thanks again.
That's what makes it so much fun.
It was a great show. Wanted to thank CJ for coming on again. He's not here at the moment because his internet cut out apparently, but another great experience with him. He's such a great guest to have on. A lot of fun. You can catch him at ESL_CJ on Twitter. As always, have all the links in the description. He'll be doing some DCCS stuff next week as well. He's doing more coaching, so that should be fun. And then Larry, as always, at Riot Legend Larry on Twitter. He does all his cool Twitter stuff with his league lore and other tidbits. Catch him there. And then don't follow me because I'm boring. I wanted to plug this real quick because I know I talked to a few people. If you want to watch the show, you're free to watch the Twitch VOD. But if you want to watch it on YouTube, we have it on YouTube. It's at youtube.com/Nighthawk20,000, I think. Or if you want to watch it or just listen to the show, it's on all major platforms. So it's on Spotify, iTunes, Google Music, all sorts of stuff. You don't have to watch the video. You can just listen to it as well. Because I know some people were like, I couldn't find it. I just wanted to watch it on Twitch. So join the Discord if you want links for that. If you can't find it, it's all in there. Just give me an @. I'll give it to you. I don't mind. Discord.gg/Nighthawk. Okay. I think we're going to wrap up now. Thanks everyone for coming out. It was a great show. We've reached episode 10, which is double digits. Woo!
Yay!
I never thought we'd get here. Have a lovely day, everyone. Thanks so much.